How are y'all doing? Good? Good lunch? So, quick survey. Who has Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency? Raise your hands. All right. Who does not have any but is interested in maybe getting some? Oh, awesome. Almost everybody. All right. So, Bitcoin. It's a big topic. Bitcoin is, for a lot of people, really intimidating. It's really complicated, and I could spend 2 hours talking about just how it works. But what I want to talk about today is, first of all, why Bitcoin? Why should you care about it? And if you do care about it, what should you do as an investor? What are the first steps? What are the big pitfalls to watch out for? And basically the what, when, and where, and how. Why should I care about it? What is it? How do I get some? How much should I get? Where do I keep it? When should I buy it? Should I buy all of it right now? Should I spread it out? Who can I trust with advice on Bitcoin? So these are the topics. I haven't given this particular talk before, so I'll talk for about an hour and then 30 minutes for questions. And if you still have questions, we have the Crypto Jam today at 7 o'clock for 2 hours. You can ask me anything you want. It's off the record, so I'll give you my honest answer. So yeah, I'll talk for an hour. Think about what questions you have, and then if you have questions still, we'll have 2 hours this evening. So first, a bit about me. That's me in Ukraine. I lived in Ukraine from 1980 1990. That's my goat. That's my dad. So anyone recognize what this is? Yeah, that's why I'm not in Ukraine anymore. So it was the summer of '86. And we had this house made out of basically clay and straw, and all our windows were open because there's no AC. It gets cold in the winter, but it gets hot in the summer. And so my dad had this illegal radio, which would play Voice of America, because it was illegal to listen to foreign stations. And so they started talking about this nuclear accident in Ukraine. We had no idea this happened. I'm sorry, I'm totally off topic, but I'll get there. So then my parents find out that, oh, there's a nuclear accident not too far from us. And then like the myth of Soviet invulnerability and superiority falls apart, especially for my mom. And that's how we end up in the US. That's when they first questioned, is this really the best country in the world? Yeah, here I am in the Texas A&M University, Corps of Cadets. That's ROTC with my dad and my sister. So I went to school, got a degree in economics, political science. Didn't learn much from those degrees. Then I got a master's in management of information systems at the business school there. And that's how I got into technology. So then, Mises University. So I feel bad that nobody from Mises Institute is here, because I would not be in Bitcoin if I were not Mises Institute. So this, by the way, I tended with you see that beautiful redhead in the middle? That's my girlfriend, now my wife, sitting right there with our 2 kids. And yeah, who brings a girlfriend to an economics conference to learn about Austrian business cycle theory? But if I had not gone to Mises University, and I was an intern there, and I came back 3 times to Mises U, and then I ran their website for 12 years. So now I work for their, maybe the arch competitor fee. But I love Mises Institute because they taught me what is sound money, how fiat currency and interventionism causes the business cycle. And I got a degree in economics and a business degree, where I learned very little, Keynesian cross and all these nonsense. But then I learned real money, real economics at the Mises Institute. So highly recommend it. Also recommend my organization, Foundation for Economic Education, Mises.org, fee.org, check it out. So this is where I learned why it's important to have sound money. So let's talk about money, because Bitcoin is money. And if I'm going to tell you that Bitcoin is better money, you have to understand what is the problem with the money we have now. So where does money come from? Oh, I'm sorry, more about me. So I went to China for 5 years, where I got into Bitcoin. And so I built this Bitcoin exchange. So this is before I was into it. I was hired just to build the Bitcoin exchange. This is the exchange. I built it. It's still running. You can go to the website right now, buy some Bitcoin. It's for the China market, so it's mostly in Chinese. But so then they hired me away to come back to the US, run their website. This is my profile. I write about Bitcoin, technology, entrepreneurship. Check it out if you're interested in all these topics, personal finance, early retirement. And then somebody asked me for help getting their Bitcoin wallet back. So he had a Bitcoin wallet and it didn't work anymore. He couldn't open the software, it's too old. He bought it many years ago and it didn't work anymore. He forgot his password. And I said, sure, I'll get it back for you and for a small fee. And then I said, well, this is really lucrative. I should do this more often. So I put up a website called it's called WalletRecovery.info. And if you go there, if you have a problem with your Bitcoin, crashed your password, your computer crashed, whatever, don't know how to use it, I'll help you out for a small share of the wallet. And so then I got deeper and deeper it. And after about 1,000 people that needed my help, I've used every single cryptocurrency out there. There's about 1,000 of them, right? Not every one of them, hundreds of them. So I've used every competitor to Bitcoin that there is. So I know all the ins and outs of all of them. So this is one thing I did. And based on this experience, I had a partner that came to me and he said, I'm starting a hedge fund to invest in Bitcoin and I need a crypto expert. And I said, yeah, sure, I can help you. And so now I'm a managing partner in Vellum Capital, which does cryptocurrency investments for high net worth individuals. So that's basically, how I learned about Bitcoin, how I got deeper in the space. Yeah, so by the way, why Vellum Capital? What is Vellum? Anyone know what Vellum is? Skin of a sheep. And why did we decide to name it Vellum Capital? This is a Vellum property deed from 1640 something. So before paper, before computers, before paper, we started off with Sumeria clay tablets, and then in Egypt, you had papyrus, and then we had lambskin. So the Hebrew Torah was written on lambskin because they didn't have paper, didn't have papyrus, and when Gutenberg printed his Bible, it was 1/4 lambskin, because that's where high-quality books were printed on. And so then in Venice, when the financial world first got really complex, and you had banks and insurance and all these institutions, of course they used vellum as the way they recorded transactions. And so vellum was the first medium, or not the first, but the first modern medium used to record financial records. And so that's why Vellum Capital, because it's the predecessor to Bitcoin. But I thought Bitcoin was money. What has to do with property deeds? I'll get into that. Yeah, so everybody's into Bitcoin because of the price, right? It's on my watch right here. Currently 11.5 thousand. 2 days ago it was 11,000. So it goes up and down. Obviously, it's very risky. I always have to say that, extremely risky. Proceed at your own risk. But everybody's really excited about, it went from zero in 2010, it was literally zero, to 12,000. How high is it going to go? I'll talk about that, but that's where the excitement is. But I don't want you to get into Bitcoin to buy some because of the price. I want you to understand why it's important, why it's a better money, and why you should be optimistic about its future. Because if you're not getting into it for a good reason, you're going to panic and sell as soon as it goes down, just because the price went down. I want you to think long term, and to do that, you have to understand why Bitcoin is important. Yeah, so what does Bitcoin compete with? Right, here are some markets that Bitcoin either could take over entirely or be a major player in. So let's start by me saying that the market capitalization of Bitcoin, which means number of Bitcoins times how much each one is worth, is currently just under $200 billion. So 200 billion seems like a lot, but let's put that in context. The e-commerce market is 2 trillion, right? A lot bigger. E-payment 2 trillion. Gold is worth 7 trillion. Right, so all of these are much bigger number, and so I don't know which one of these it will replace or to what extent, but the point is, Bitcoin's ambition is to replace some or all of these things. And so that's why it's exciting. The potential of Bitcoin is to be 10 times or 100 times or 1,000 times higher in price than it is now. And so the question is, can it really compete with any or all of these markets? Is it really digital gold? Is it better than gold as money? Is it the best way to send money offshore? Because if it is, then this, 4.5 trillion cash market, can be taken over as Bitcoin as the world's currency. That's the question. I'm not saying it's going to get there, But that's the ambition of the people supporting Bitcoin. So more about why Bitcoin. Why is Bitcoin money? Why is it good money? So anyone know what this is? What is this called? Shells. Wampum. Wampum. It's when the British came to the Americas, they found the Native Americans using this as money. It's shells, right? So money is anything that's a useful medium of exchange and a store of value. But for most of Western history, money has been gold and silver. And why is that? Because it's very durable, it's divisible, it's easy to measure what quantity you have, etc. So this has been money for most of history until fiat currency. So in the early 20th century, one by one, every world government went from commodity money, meaning gold and silver money, to fiat money, which is backed by nothing. And what's been the consequence of that? Right? So every money that has existed has suffered deflation. And the longer fiat money is around, the more likely this is to happen. So I want to ask what this is, because you can see this is on there. Bank of Zimbabwe, $50 trillion. I have a $100 trillion bill at home. So every currency trends towards zero, trends towards inflation. Why is that? It has to do with the very purpose of fiat currency. So again, Mises Institute is your best source on this. This is where I learned all this. So go there, read it for yourself. But the point is that in a free market, in a capitalist society, you have commodity money. And so, there's a market for money and for interest. When government gets involved, they do that so they can spend beyond their means. So they're not limited by the taxes they collect in what they can spend. And the result has been that, since the Federal Reserve was founded in 1913, the value of the dollar has lost 96% of its value. So the problem with fiat money is that the whole point of it is to allow governments to mess with the economy, spend beyond their means, not have to rely on taxes. They use inflation as a hidden tax, mostly so they can fund the welfare, corporate welfare, individual welfare, and create this huge welfare state, and so they can fund wars. And I believe that both world wars would not have been possible if we had commodity money. Because how do they fund the war? They just, they sold bonds, they counterfeited the currency. And that's what made global war, total war possible. You can't have total war with sound money, because you have to have the people consent to pay that money in taxes. But if you can print as much money as you want, you can redirect the entire economy. That's what total war is, to whatever the politician's cause is. And so that's the issue with sound money. It's very tempting. And in the long run, all money trends towards zero, trends towards hyperinflation, because it's just easier to print money than to raise taxes from people, especially in a representative government. Right? So what happens in the late 20th century is we had continuous inflation of the currency, even in the world's freest, best economy. Bernanke just throws money out of the helicopter. We had the 2008 financial crisis, and we threw trillions of dollars at the economy, trying to make it move. And it just escalates and escalates, and politicians start promising free stuff, right? So they can make, the huge promises, Green New Deal, you get a free education, you get a free education, you get a free house, whatever. They can promise anything. How do they fund this? They don't raise taxes, they just print more money. And if you look at the picture of what's happening, inevitable that we're going to have hyperinflation of the dollar. And our savings, if our dollar savings, will be worthless. I don't know, maybe it'll happen next year, maybe 10 years, maybe 30 years, but it's just a matter of time. Right? So if you want to learn more about this, this is one article I wrote about how this is already destroying America. Our bridges are falling apart, our water is poisoned with lead because we're able to print money and make investments that we don't have the savings to maintain. And you can read about it to get all the details. So, Bitcoin, how does that solve the problem? So before Bitcoin, there were all these attempts at digital gold. And long story short, the problem with all of them was that they relied on gold being physically stored somewhere. And governments really don't like competition for money. So you had e-gold and other digital gold ventures where you could send gold digitally, and they were all shut down. And the government says it's because terrorists were using them, where there's money laundering, but the fact is government does not like competition. They depend on their monopoly on money to be able to spend beyond their means. And so no centralized gold money can survive in today's economy. So this is the context in which Satoshi Nakamoto, a pseudonym, wrote this white paper in 2008. And he proposed this idea of a digital gold called Bitcoin. And when he created the Bitcoin, in the blockchain you can put a message. And he put this message saying, "Chancellor on the brink of second bailout for banks." So this is a hint that he created Bitcoin in response to the second financial crisis and the fact that our money is unsound. So Satoshi is anonymous. We don't know if it's a person or a group, but we know from their messages and from the fact that in the very first Bitcoin block, there was this hidden message that it was in response to our financial system being fundamentally unsound. So how does Bitcoin solve that problem? So I won't read into it. If you really want to know the details, we can talk about it. But basically, it's digital money. It's a cryptocurrency. So it's money you can send worldwide instantly for nearly free, any amount. You can send $1 or $1 billion for the same price. It's pseudo-anonymous, meaning that if you don't know who owns this address or the receiving address, you don't know who it's between. And it's also a cryptocurrency. So there's many cryptocurrencies now. Bitcoin is the first one and the best one, I think. But it uses cryptography. It uses math to secure transactions. So how are dollars secured against fraud? By the Secret Service, making counterfeiting illegal. So that's secured by fiat, by government fiat. Bitcoin is secured by math, by nature. And if you trust mathematics, and I trust mathematics, and you trust that the math is, adds up, 1 and 1 equals 2, then it's impossible to counterfeit Bitcoin. It's impossible to falsify transactions. So Bitcoin is money. Gold can be money. Dollars are money. I think Bitcoin is the best money. Why? Oh, by the way, Bitcoin and Austrian economics. So this is Nick Szabo. Again, he's denied being the creator of Bitcoin. I am sure he is Satoshi. He did create Bitcoin. But he's written about his views in Austrian economics. And so there's a clear connection between Bitcoin and the Austrian theory of economics, which the Mises Institute champions. By the way, Mises Institute is the legacy of, in the dark days of the 2 world wars, big government and fascism and socialism were basically universal. And there was only a very tiny school of Austrian economists led by Ludwig von Mises that migrated from Austria to the US and kept ideas of sound money and free markets alive. And the Mises Institute is the legacy of that school. And so they've championed this, and that's why I'm into Bitcoin, and I believe that Nick Szabo, the creator of Bitcoin, was influenced by these ideas as well. So what is Bitcoin? It's the best money ever. Why? So you can read the details for yourself, but it's durable because it's just a number, right? Numbers you can write down in any format, any medium, put it in a safe. It's divisible. Each Bitcoin can be divided into 100 million Satoshis. That's the minimum unit. So you have dollars and cents, you have Bitcoins and Satoshis, and a Satoshi is not 1/100th, but 1/100 millionth. And the reason that's important is because there will only ever be a maximum, I think, at 16 million Bitcoin, and Satoshi made it small enough that every human on Earth can have Bitcoin and still use it to buy his coffee and have some change left over. So it's fungible, meaning that for the most part, 1 Bitcoin is the same as any other Bitcoin. Right, so it can be blacklisted. It can, it's money. It's interchangeable. It's portable. So where's my Bitcoin wallet? This is my Bitcoin wallet, right? I can carry this through airport security. I can write down. This has a secret, which is my wallet, basically, and I can write that on paper. I can memorize it. I can take it anywhere. So it's very portable. And it's scarce. There will only ever be 16 million. And that's what keeps it from inflating into oblivion like fiat currency. So it's gold, but it's better than gold because it's so portable and it's impossible to confiscate in the way that FDR confiscated gold in 1933 from Americans. So I'm just going to show you what does it actually look like. What does Bitcoin look like? This is the Bitcoin Core wallet. So this is the official. It's not really official because it's a network. It's a community. But one of the main Bitcoin clients, the group that actually develops the technology, creates this wallet where if you want to run a full node that's talking to the network, this is what the software looks like. Here's another Bitcoin wallet. So this is software in your computer. This is a piece of paper. But it's also a Bitcoin wallet. It has a public address where you can check the balance, like a gift card from Walmart, and the private key that you can spend from. So it's a similar concept, but it's on paper. So it's software, it's paper. Because all a Bitcoin wallet is a secret that you can memorize or write down on paper or load up into a computer. Here's another Bitcoin wallet. This is a Trezor. So this is my pocket is a Ledger Nano S Bitcoin wallet. This is a Trezor Bitcoin wallet. So if you have a lot of Bitcoin, more than $100, definitely don't keep it on your computer because computers are lost, hacked, stolen, whatever. Keep it on a hardware wallet. This is $40. This is maybe about 40 as well, and it's infinitely more secure than keeping it on your phone or computer. For change, that's fine. Use your phone, but if you have $100,000, $1 million in Bitcoin, definitely keep it on a hardware wallet. And this is what it looks like. You have your hardware wallet, and you have a recovery phrase. So you write down your 24 words. This is important. You write down your 24 words. Put the piece of paper in your safe. That piece of paper is your wallet. Right? So you can, if you lose your Trezor, you can, or that's a ledger, you can regenerate it, you can recover it from the piece of paper. If somebody gets the piece of paper, takes a photo of it, your money is gone. So keep the paper safe, and this works. This is true for all Bitcoin wallets. Keep the paper in the safe. Don't show it to anybody. Put it in a tamper-evident envelope. The wallet, the hardware wallet, is protected by a password. So if I leave it here and forget about it, it's fine, because it self-destructs after a few incorrect password attempts, but the value is actually in that piece of paper. So it's very portable, and you can memorize those 24 words if you're good, and actually, there's tricks to do that, and so nobody can take that from you. It's in your head if you want it to be. So what if your safe catches on fire, there's a flood? So you can take that piece of paper, and this is called a crypto steel. It's the same thing as that piece of paper, but it's made out of metal, and instead of writing it, you slide the little letters in. So only the first 4 letters matter, so it works for that. And then it's waterproof, it's fireproof. As long as it doesn't physically melt steel, it's going to survive, right? So if you're serious about Bitcoin, get one of these, put it in a tamper-evident envelope, put that in a safe place. Okay, so moving into some security implications. If you have your Bitcoin with somebody else, meaning that you keep it at an exchange, that's like cashing out from the ATM and leaving money in the ATM. So not a smart idea, but if you do that, you use this 2-factor authentication device. So I don't use passwords. I have on my keychain this YubiKey, and I touch it to log in to my Bitcoin exchange. So I'll go more into detail on this later. So where's Bitcoin actually stored? So you can store it yourself, but if you have $1 billion, or if you're a hedge fund or a Bitcoin mutual fund, where do you keep it? You keep it in a form of nuclear bunker, right? So this is all what Bitcoin looks like. This is Bitcoin, right? This is where the whales keep it. A whale is somebody that has a lot of Bitcoin. So this is a former nuclear bunker in Switzerland. This company Zappo has 5 of them around the world. So they're not linked to one jurisdiction. So they need 3 out of 5 to authorize transactions. You go in there. This is the throne room. This is they call it a suite where they keep those 24 words. This thing. That's all it is. Those 24 words. They put it in a nuclear bunker, have all these guards, and they keep it in a suite. And then when they want to authorize a transaction for their whales that are safekeeping it with them, this provides they need 3 out of 5 to authorize a transaction. This is a Bitcoin ATM. So you can buy it at an exchange. You can come up after the talk, give me $20, I'll give you $20 worth of Bitcoin. You can go to an ATM and buy some. This is how Bitcoin is created. This is a Bitcoin mine. So in order to make sure that it's safe from hacking, that somebody can't just buy a bunch of computers and take over the network, we have Bitcoin mining. So we have miners that are creating new Bitcoin every 10 minutes. So if I send you some Bitcoin, it's going to be confirmed in 10 minutes because every 10 minutes a new block is created that makes the transaction basically perpetual. And that's, I won't be too technical today, but that's done at these Bitcoin mines. They're mostly powered by renewable energy because the main cost is electricity. So almost all mining is now in areas that have hydropower or nuclear power below market rates, mostly in China, but also some in Oregon and Washington. But that's what a Bitcoin mine looks like. That's where it's created. So basically it's created, at first it was very quick. So Satoshi got $1 billion worth, and then everyone else got a little less, and the rate slows down until it stops producing new Bitcoin entirely, and the network was funded by transaction fees. And here's my Bitcoin, here's my miner. This is not a Bitcoin miner, this is a cryptocurrency miner. So there's about 1,000 different cryptocurrencies. If you want to mine Bitcoin, you have to have one of these. This is a Bitcoin miner, it's an ASIC, it's specialized hardware. You can see the price here, it's $4,500, quite expensive. If all you have is commodity graphics cards, like I do, then you mine other cryptocurrencies. So as cryptocurrencies become more mature, people write hardware that can mine faster. It's called an ASIC. And it's quite expensive, as you can see. So, I don't do this to make money, I just do it for fun. So I have just the gaming graphics cards, and it makes a few bucks a day. Don't recommend mining Bitcoin as a business venture unless you're really serious and you have a few $100,000 and you have below market electric supply. So that's Bitcoin. Let's talk about the Bitcoin ecosystem. So Bitcoin is just a money transmission network, but to make it actually useful, you have to have the ecosystem, right? So what does the ecosystem look like, right? There's hundreds of different businesses in this ecosystem. So the money is just the tip of the iceberg. And so I'm just going to zoom in on some aspects of the ecosystem, right? Let's zoom in and talk about a few of them. Do I have a laser pointer here? Yeah. So I don't know if you can see that, but one of these sections is custody. So you have Zappo circled. So Zappo owns these former nuclear bunkers, the vaults. So if you have a lot of it, that's where you store it. And there's no minimum amount. If you have $5 in Bitcoin, you can store it in their bunker. So they keep a small amount in a hot wallet, which is not in the bunker, and they have a cold wallet, which is in the bunker. So you can buy $5, and you're still insured because the majority is in the nuclear vault, and they will keep it safe if that's what you want. If you don't want to custody it yourself, so that's custody providers. There's many of them. Zappo is the biggest name there. There's Bitcoin wallets. Let's see if there's a wallet here. Not on this chart. Yeah. So here are the players in the Bitcoin ecosystem. So first you have the miners. The miners are the ones that are minting the new Bitcoin. And by minting it, they're keeping the network secure. The point of mining is that it's more, if you want to steal Bitcoin, it's more expensive to basically take over the mining network than the Bitcoin you would get in the theft. And so that makes it never cost effective to try to hack the network, because it would cost you more to hack it than the Bitcoin you would get in exchange. So that's miners. Then you have exchanges and ATMs. So the biggest one in the US is Coinbase, Binance in Asia, and ATM providers all over the country, all over the world, where you can buy Bitcoin just like you withdraw cash from a bank. You have wallets, and like you saw, you have wallets that are on paper, that are apps on your phone, that are hardware. Merchant services, so like BitPay. If you want to take a Bitcoin as payment in your online business or point of sale, then you use BitPay. And BitPay gives you the tools to take Bitcoin just as easily or almost as easily as dollars. So just like credit cards. BitPay also has a credit card, and you can load your debit card with Bitcoin and spend it anywhere, just like you spend cash. So these various services make it easy to use Bitcoin, just like you use cash. You can now use Bitcoin at Whole Foods and Amazon and all kinds of other places. Then you have custody providers. So that's Zappo. That's the guys with the nuclear bunker. P2P marketplaces. So some places governments crack down on Bitcoin, or you want to have a store that's anonymous that sells products. Some of these places are not legitimate, but basically one marketplace, BISC is called, it matches consumers, buyers and sellers directly. So it's independent, nobody's running it. There's no central authority, there's no central business. It's a network based on software, and you're matched directly with somebody that wants to buy or sell Bitcoin. You send directly to their bank account, and then they send you some Bitcoin. And then we have Investor Financial Services. So I run one service. It's a cryptocurrency hedge fund. There's the Bitcoin investment fund. If you want to invest in Bitcoin, Bitcoin Investment Trust, and other services for investors that want to get into this and trade Bitcoin. And Enterprise Blockchain Solutions. This is not Bitcoin, but I'm putting it here because people often confuse it. So the concept, the invention of the blockchain that Satoshi came up with has been used in many other places besides money. So Amazon Web Services has a blockchain, Microsoft Azure has a blockchain, IBM has a blockchain. A lot of organizations are using blockchain for things such as recording property titles, and whenever you have a group of organizations or businesses that don't trust each other fully, you can use the blockchain as a public record. And so property titles are a perfect use case for this. Now, I think it's going to take a little time for this idea to really take off and become practical. But I believe that the blockchain as an invention is useful for a lot more than money. So how do you get started? Let me get some water here. So everybody probably has heard of Coinbase. It's in the US. It's the biggest point of sale for buying Bitcoin. So as long as you don't mind the IRS knowing who you are, you can go here in 10 minutes, buy some Bitcoin. But they did subpoena Coinbase, and everybody that transacted over $20,000, they got a letter from the IRS saying, hey, we noticed you bought a lot of Bitcoin, or you sold a lot of Bitcoin. Just FYI, you're on our radar. So that's all that's happened so far, but just be aware if you use an exchange, you're not anonymous. But this is the easiest way if you just want to buy a little Bitcoin. You'll pay ends up being about 2% fee. I think it's reasonable and very convenient, and you can have it on there in 10 minutes. So, oh, by the way, this is my mining dashboard. So if you mine Bitcoin cryptocurrencies, this is the service I recommend. It's called NiceHash, and every 3 hours, I get a payout in Bitcoin for my mining. This is just for fun, so it's very small amounts. But this is what it looks like. I have my, if you can see the text here, my Bitcoin address that's getting paid, my 2 graphics cards and CPU that are mining Ethereum right now, or Monero, and they get paid every 3 hours. And it's showing what algorithms they're currently hashing. So if you have any questions, we can talk about it later. So we're getting closer to the investing part. How do I make money from this? Let's compare Bitcoin to other technologies and look in general, because if you want to know, what's the Bitcoin going to be worth in the future, you have to compare it to other technologies and ask how long did they take to become popular for their adoption to increase. Because the price of Bitcoin is ultimately driven by adoption. How many people are using it for something actually practical and useful and not speculating it. So let's compare it to some other technologies and kind of generalize how does technology adoption work. So, this is 20th century, this is 1900 to 2005, and we see telephone, electricity, refrigerator, dishwasher, microwave, VCR, and the details aren't important, but you see that each line is steeper than the previous one. And so the point of this is that technology adoption is becoming faster and faster. Technological change is accelerating. Now, I have a whole theory about why that is, but it's important to know that don't go by the past to predict how often, how fast things will change in the future, and especially how fast technology will be adopted in the future. Because, for example, smartphones are not even on here, but now almost every one of you has a smartphone, and they did not exist 10 years ago, for the most part. And so each new technology is adopted faster than the other one. And so, don't look at the past to predict how quickly Bitcoin is going to take over the whole world. But we can generalize every new technology has a common cycle, and basically you have a fermentation stage where it's really immature and people just figuring out what is this, does it work at all. Then you have a rapid takeoff where hype grows and adoption grows, and then you have maturity where everybody has it. Everybody now has a television, has a microwave, has air conditioning, and there's not really, it's slowed down. And then you have a paradigm shift, this discontinuity where something better comes along or something different comes along. So, at first everybody had wired telephones, and then somebody invented the cell phone. And so I've never had a wired telephone line. I'm almost, late 30s, but I've never even had I've never had cable because there was discontinuity and people went from wired telephone lines to cell phones. And then you had the same thing with cell phones. Only a few people had them. They're very expensive. Then you had rapid adoption, maturity. Everybody had a cell phone. And then we had a new thing called a smartphone, which is a computer in your pocket, always on internet in your pocket. And then we'll have something different. So that's how all technologies are adopted, become mature, and then replaced by something different. So this is what I'm looking for. Where are we with Bitcoin in this cycle? Let's dig into some more detail. So we can see that, this is about adoption. This upward chart is about hype. So when you have new technology, some people become really excited, and everybody starts talking about it. Like everybody talked about Bitcoin in 2017. And you had this spike in hype and excitement, but it's premature because the tool is not yet ready for mass adoption. So when you had smartphones, at first they're really bulky. Let's go back to the internet. You had people writing in the New York Times how the internet was going to take over the whole world, except for Krugman, who said it was going to fail and never amount to anything. But he's always wrong. So then you have this peak of inflated expectations. We had this happen in 2017, and then it's not ready yet for mass adoption, and so it falls, and then you have the disillusionment. Oh, this will never work. But actually, the ecosystem is growing, the thing is improving, getting better and better, and it's reaching maturity, and it's ready for everybody to use. The chasm, right? And so some things are really vaporware, it's hype, it's not real, it's not ready for mass adoption. So you had, remember there was 3D television, and everybody said it was going to be the future, and then it actually hurt your eyes if you watch it too long, and you have to wear funky glasses. And so that never recovered, because actually people didn't like it. It wasn't even not ready. It was just wasn't a thing. So, where are we with Bitcoin? This is my opinion, obviously. Everything is my opinion, but it's internet before the web browser. So I don't know if any of you were on the internet before the web browser, but you had the Gopher protocol, you had FTP, you had all these clunky, really, the BBS boards. I got on the internet right in the transition, and it was really hard to use, and nobody really realized that one day 100% of humanity would be on the internet in one way or the other. So we're waiting right now with Bitcoin for that critical invention, the web browser of Bitcoin, that makes it useful to most people. Because let's be honest, right now, most people are not going to benefit practically from Bitcoin. Maybe as investors, but not practically. There are some that will, though. So we're waiting right now for that killer application of Bitcoin that was going to, explode the price. So let's talk about, what does development look like for Bitcoin? So the way I see it is three phases of development. So first you have the discovery phase. So that Columbus came to the New World in the ship, and that was the discovery. Oh, there's this thing, the West Indies, and he thought it was part of India, and he was all wrong about that. So like, we have no idea what's going on. Does this work at all? What are the basic parameters? And that's where people figured out, this actually works as money. This actually works. The math is sound. Now, it was completely unsafe. Most people that had some Bitcoin during this time lost it. And extremely dangerous, extremely volatile. Best investor strategy is buy and hold during this time, because it's just too risky to invest in anything or do anything with it. Then, right now, we're in the infrastructure phase. We are building the tools to have a cryptocurrency economy. So, this hardware wallet is a ecosystem, part of this ecosystem. All the business I talked about, we're making Bitcoin easy to use as Visa. cheaper than Visa, faster than Visa, safer than Visa, and based on sound money. And so I don't know when it will end, but right now we're making Bitcoin. We're trying to figure out what is the killer app, how can we make it available and easy for everybody. And so what's the investor strategy right now? It's mostly hold Bitcoin, but then maybe hold some other competitors to Bitcoin. So hold a basket, and you know, there are some options, but not try to invest in too many Bitcoin companies. Focus on the network, because right now we have no idea what is going to be successful. So next stage, the explosive stage, is the mass adoption stage, right? This is in the future. This happens when the ecosystem, the hardware, the software, the people, the awareness is ready for mass adoption. So what are we going to see? Adoption by institutions on a massive scale. We'll have E-Trade and all these online stock companies selling it and pushing it, and we'll have Bank of America jumping into it, and it'll have mass interest in mass adoption. And then what's the strategy then? Invest in second layer solutions. So at that point, we're going to have Bitcoin-enabled e-commerce, and we're going to have Bitcoin financial services. We'll have life insurance in Bitcoin, and we'll have you know, all kinds of services that are built on Bitcoin. So as investors, what can we do? At that point, we can invest in actual Bitcoin businesses and not just hold Bitcoin. So again, how big is it going to grow, right? It competes with all these big things. The derivatives market is $700 trillion. Bitcoin is 200 billion. The gold market is 7 trillion. Bitcoin is 200 billion, right? So, you know, how big is it going to get? Let's put this visually, right? The gold is worth 7.5 trillion. Most of the value is not industrial use of gold or cosmetic use or jewelry. It's gold as a store of value. And I've told you that Bitcoin is a better store of value than gold. So maybe Bitcoin will replace some of the use of gold as a store of value. So I probably can't see my pointer, but you can see here cryptocurrency market, 300 billion, of which Bitcoin is 200. And then you have global remittances. Our remittance is when you send money overseas back to your family, and it's really hard right now to do with cash because of all the anti-money laundering, anti-terrorism laws. It's really complicated to send money if you're you know, a foreign worker in some country, which like 1 billion or something people are around the world. That's a $429 billion market, right? Much bigger than the whole cryptocurrency market. And Bitcoin is the best way to send money across the world for almost free and instantaneously and more securely. We just need the ecosystem to get there, right? And then you have the global digital payments market, 3.3 trillion, etc. Global M2, all the money in the world, is $100 trillion, right? So I think Bitcoin is the best money ever. Maybe it's going to have a share of that. So what does it look like? If Bitcoin is 20% of gold, the price of Bitcoin is going to be 80,000. Right? If the market cap of Bitcoin is 20% of the market cap of gold, it's going to be $80,000. If it's used to store your money offshore, so right now we have these FATCA laws and all these regulations. If you're an American and you keep any offshore bank accounts, you have to report to the government. And they forced basically all the tax havens around the world to release their secret customer lists to global to the IRS and all the other revenue services. So there's no more real tax havens around the world. And so if Bitcoin is used to secret away wealth, that will drive the price up to $390,000 per Bitcoin. And if it's about 1% of the bond market, it'll be worth $1 million per Bitcoin. So I don't know which scenario is going to play out. Could be even more, but here are just some numbers, right? So you figure out how big you think, or rather, what service is going to compete with, and that will tell you what the price will be. So I believe in fundamental analysis, meaning let's look at actual adoption of Bitcoin, not just the price, not technical analysis. So for example, how many Bitcoin ATMs there are will tell you how much actual usage of Bitcoin there is. But this is Google Trends. A useful number will tell you searches for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies here, and you can see it spiked in late 2017 or late 2018. It's recovering now. So we had a crypto winter, and then now it's going back up. But if you want to keep track of the hype over Bitcoin, don't just look at the price, look at a leading indicator like Google search, Google Trends. All right, so let's get a little bit more practical. Where do I buy it? Coinbase is a good option. Gemini is a good option. They have an app. It's easy to use, and I think it's a bit more enterprise-oriented or maybe large investor-oriented than Coinbase. You can buy it as a consumer, basically take whatever price they give you, or you can go, this is Coinbase Pro, this is where I trade, and so you can put in a limit order. And if you're a trader, if you do currency trading or stock trading, you're going to know immediately what this is. You can put in the price you want to buy it at if you want to get the very best price. So let's sum up, first of all, why you should care about Bitcoin. So first, it's an insurance policy for the collapse of the global fiat money debt regime. Second, it's an alternative to historically low returns in the stock market. Why do I say they're low? Because with laws like Sarbanes-Oxley and all these regulations, by the time you can go IPO as a public company, most of the risk has been already taken out of your company, right? If you want to have high profits as an investor, you have to get in early with the business. But if you have to have a valuation of $10 billion to go public, most of the risk and most of the profits have already gone to the early investors. And if you're not an accredited investor, if you don't have $1 million in the bank, it's not legal, basically, oversimplifying, for you to invest in startups. You can have your own business, but you can't go and be a startup investor until they're a public company. And so the stock market returns are going to be historically low and not a way to generate wealth. So Bitcoin's an alternative because it's still very early stage, and it's the network that's capturing all the value, not particular Bitcoin companies. So I think of it as buying the internet before the web browser was invented. Now also, if Bitcoin is the next internet, you want to build your career in it. So even if you don't for profit financially, if I were a young person, I would want to know all about this, because a lot of companies are being built on the blockchain. Even having nothing to do with Bitcoin, things like property titles and loans and insurance are going to be revolutionized by the blockchain. And so as a young person, I would love to really know this in depth and to really master it and build my career in this. I was in high school in the late 90s when the internet was exploding, and I knew this was going to be world-changing thing, but I was in high school. I only had so much money to invest in the stock market, and I didn't know what companies to invest in. And I did build my career in the internet, but I couldn't get in early and profit from that because the value was in all these startups. And I didn't know if I should go pets.com or Amazon. Anyone remember pets.com? Yeah, it was worth $1 billion and went bankrupt like most .com startups. And so the point is, with Bitcoin, it's the network that's capturing the value, whereas with the internet, it was much harder to invest in it because you didn't know what startup to bet on, and most of them went bankrupt. Okay, so it's also an early retirement plan. If it does explode 100-fold, you retire early. And if you're like me, a supporter of sound money and the free economy and the governments that are responsible to the people, then it's technology that makes politics relevant. I don't expect politicians to fix the problems they created. No matter, I've given up on politics because ultimately it's the same people that created problems we're asking to fix them. And politics corrupts them. No matter how good you are when you go into it, you become corrupt. And so this is a technology that forces fiscal constraints, forces sound money. And fiat money, corrupt fiat money, is, I believe, the cause of most of the problems we faced in the 20th century, the welfare state and the total war. All right, so okay, so how do you invest in the blockchain? So my idea is buy and hold Bitcoin, right? Pretty simple. Trade Bitcoin. I don't know much, but I'm not a trader. I'm a technology person, but you can always try day trading. You can start a business in the Bitcoin ecosystem. So that means you can take Bitcoin as payment for whatever service you're offering, or you can provide blockchain services. So, I work at a Bitcoin cryptocurrency hedge fund company, provide a service to accredited investors that want to put a lot of money in and have a sophisticated trading strategy to earn more than just the market price and be protected from downsides. So you can take Bitcoin as payment or provide services, or you can build Bitcoin wallet or other Bitcoin ATM business. There's hundreds of businesses that are profiting from the Bitcoin ecosystem. You can invest in a cryptocurrency fund. So I run such a fund. There's other funds. There's funds that are for beginners that have a minimum of 0, don't have to be accredited, but it's a very simple strategy. And there's funds for high net worth investors. And you can mine Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. So I mine it just for fun. Mining is really complicated. Be careful before you get into it. There's a lot of scams in this area. Okay, so what do I buy? So first, invest in cryptocurrencies, companies later. Because we have no idea what companies are going to be successful, but it's easy to buy cryptocurrencies. And when investing, focus on Bitcoin. This is obviously all my opinion. I could be totally wrong. Bitcoin could be dead, and there'll be something Bitcoin 2.0 next year. This is just my opinion. But it is my opinion. You should buy almost your whole crypto portfolio should be Bitcoin. And then have a small basket of altcoins, meaning cryptocurrencies other than Bitcoin, in case Bitcoin is not the thing that wins out. And so how much of your portfolio should be in Bitcoin? Maybe 2.5% of your assets in a speculative portfolio. Okay, some other random ideas. Should you buy it all at once? If you're not very risk averse, if you like to gamble, you can buy it all at once. But there's this great idea called dollar cost averaging, where you get into a market in a smaller series of payments. In case the price crashes tomorrow, you still benefit. You don't suffer as much loss. So it's lowering your risk by getting into the market in a series of transactions and not one big chunk. And so think long term. Oh, so yeah, why think long term? So again, I help people with their wallets. This is one of my customers. He had a bunch of Bitcoin, and he came to me and says, well, I sold my Bitcoin early, and here's some old wallets. See if you can find some change there. So you guys see how much this is? These are all deposits of 1,000 Bitcoin each. So here's the price of Bitcoin. It's currently 11,000. These are 1,000 each. This is currently, if he had not sold it, would be a $200 million wallet. Now, maybe some of you are skeptical that I really have a $200 million wallet on my computer. Here it is. 1 second. So I'm going back in time, right, to when this guy was first depositing. I'm going to sort by amount. Here it is. This is a Bitcoin wallet. These are each deposits of 1,000 Bitcoin each. You're looking at $200 million of Bitcoin transactions right here. If you don't believe me, you can go in, check the digital signatures. So this guy had 20,000 Bitcoin. This is what you're looking at. Each one of these is 1,000 Bitcoin. And he sold it all. He made, I don't know the exact numbers, but he spent 10,000 on it. A little more than that. He made $60,000 in profit. He thought he was awesome. And, if he had capped it, he would have 200 million. And so he comes to me and he says, I have some old wallets. See if I have some, dust some change under the, like looking in your couch for change. Because the $200 million he sold for 60,000. And then he wanted me to see if there was any change. And you can see there was maybe a little bit of change there. But he ended up not being retired and lost the big opportunity. And he thought that he was awesome trying to time the market and sell it before it collapsed in 2012 or something. He could have been, worth 200 million. So don't make this mistake. Don't try to time the market. This is all my opinion. It could be wrong again. I could cause you to lose all your money. Don't sue me. But have a long-term strategy. If you bought it for a good reason, keep it until you need the money. So again, more argument why you should buy mostly Bitcoin. Bitcoin was the first. If you look at the market capitalization of Bitcoin versus other coins, it was the first that was 100% for a long time, and then it had competitors. And so the share of the crypto market that Bitcoin is fell down to 32%. And so everybody was saying, oh, Bitcoin is dead. Now we have Bitcoin 2.0, 3.0, it's going to die. You're stupid, buy Ethereum. I'm not dissing Ethereum, buy IOTA, which is dumb. right? By Monero, by Dash, by Bitcoin Cash. And then Bitcoin started recovering from 32%, and now it's over 70% of the market. So, I've always said focus on Bitcoin, have a small basket of altcoins, because my bet is on Bitcoin. And I'm not opposed to Ethereum is great. I have some Ethereum, I have some Monero, but my bet is on Bitcoin. And if you want more details, definitely come up afterward or tonight and ask me. So how much should you invest as a percentage of your net worth? I'm not going to tell you what I did because I'm dumb and I'm not risk averse, but this is my official position. 100% as insurance against the collapse of the global regime, 2 to 5% speculation, and if you want to retire early, 5 to 10%, maybe a little more. Don't do what I did, but I won't tell you anyway. So my favorite dessert is cheesecake. My wife made this wonderful cheesecake, and she had a chocolate Bitcoin mold. And so it's a great thing at Bitcoin themed parties to give away chocolate Bitcoins. So, sorry, off topic. Is that your free giveaway? See, it would have melted. The mini fridge is too small, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so what am I doing here? Really, I just want to advocate for Bitcoin. But if you need some help, I'll give you advice. My advice is free. So feel free to ask me, how do I get started? If you want to get serious about crypto investing, if you have some money you want to put in, talk to somebody that knows and not some YouTube personality. There's hundreds of YouTube personalities that don't know what they're talking about that are day trading. I'm sorry, this is my opinion. It's not smart. You can lose all your money. If you're serious about investing in crypto, talk to somebody professional. If you screwed up your Bitcoin wallet, definitely talk to me. I can help you. That I do charge money for. And if you want to invest a lot of money into Bitcoin, I can help you. Whether it's through me or through some other organization, I can give you some advice. Don't buy it from a guy off the street. So again, this is a huge topic. Here's lots of ideas I want to talk about, but you might take this with you for tonight's Crypto Jam at 7 o'clock. And let's see how much time I have. I want to make sure you can have questions. If you have questions, here are some things you might ask me questions about. So I'm going to leave this open for a minute so you can think about any questions. So again, if you have any questions, my advice is, I'll give you advice, no charge. If you want to get serious about crypto, a lot of money, have some business, I'll tell you what I think. I have a fund. I'm not trying to sell it to you, but I do have an email list. If you go to vellum.capital, there's no .com, it's vellum.capital/bigideas. Sign up there, and I'll tell you industry developments and all the trading advice I told you today, and more, I will share in that list. There's a sign-up sheet at the table over there, and also my business cards if you want to get in touch. So afterwards, if you want to stay in touch, you can go to this website, put your name, put your email, or take my card, and you can follow me. Also, this Twitter, I just started this account. I'm going to tweet all the things I talked about today and more on this account. And you can email me. Tonight's Crypto Jam, I'll be there for at least 2 hours. You can ask me anything. I'll give you my off-the-record opinion all about crypto. So again, if you want to get started, I'll give you my advice. You can email, message me, SMS me. If you need help with your wallet, if you want to get started, if you have a lot of money to put in, you can talk to me. And that's it. Yeah, questions?
Yes, I have
go ahead.
I'll move this away from my mouth a bit. So right now, is the infrastructure in place if I wanted to, say, sell you my car and you wanted to pay with Bitcoin off your USB drive? Could that be done right now?
I'm not so eBay Auto, does it take Bitcoin payments? And the answer is I'm not sure. I know there are marketplaces that take eBay as payments for a car or real estate. eBay might do it, I'm not sure.
Or just hypothetically between us as two
Oh,
parties.
yeah, well,
I'm not really selling you my
yeah.
car, but just as a hypothetical.
So I can definitely pay you for a car, and you sign the title away, and there's a public record, and we can have a digital signature in that transaction that says, transfer my car. Now, what's the legal? If that goes to court, can you prove it? I would say the legal infrastructure is immature. So yeah, there's a record, and there are ways to show that it's between us two. And so just like if we transferred cash, you would have to prove that it actually, if I'm buying the car, that I paid it to you. So if you can prove it with cash, it'd be actually easier to prove it with Bitcoin. So the answer is, for the most part, yes, but there's not a formal official mechanism to prove that in court.
Would we need to have a third-party intermediary if you're going to transfer Bitcoin to me
No.
in a private transaction?
The whole point is it's person to person, so there's no need for that.
Okay.
Okay, so first of all, you have a lot more time on the schedule, and I am like so not understanding any of this.
Yeah.
Could you give me a third grader's explanation, even just of what it is? I still don't understand. Like, I get that there's a paper dollar bill that's printed. I know this doesn't happen anymore, but theoretically, it did happen at one point. That there's a dollar bill and it's backed by so many ounces of gold or whatever. I don't understand what it is that Bitcoin actually is. Like when you say you mine it, what is being, I don't even understand the very basic fundamentals of what it actually is.
Right.
I think you're right about it working and doing all the things you say, obviously, and I even bought some because Ray told me to, but I don't really know what it is.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what it is as best I can in a few minutes. But aside from that, if you think of it as gold, right? So there's what it is and how it's easier for you to think about it. So if you were just to think of Bitcoin as gold or gold certificates, so if you have gold in a vault and you have a claim to that gold, then you can transfer that gold certificate to other people. And so if you just want an easier way to understand it, think of it that way. Bitcoin is digital gold. You have a claim to it in a vault somewhere, and the way you prove it is with a gold certificate. This is how it used to work. Banks didn't have fiat notes, they had gold reserve notes. And you could give that gold certificate to somebody, and that's how value is transferred. So my point is that it's easier to think of it as digital gold than to really try to think of it in terms of the underlying technologies. But what it actually is a series of secrets. So each Bitcoin address, and think of that as a gold reserve note, each Bitcoin address has a certain value, how much Bitcoin has been deposited in that value. It's like the value deposited in the bank account. And the address is public, and anybody can see your address. They don't know whose address it is, but the addresses are public. So you deposit Bitcoin that's mined, because all of it is mined at first in an address. And you can check how much value is in each address. But that address has a private key, and that key is used to spend the money in that address. So the Bitcoin money is two things. The addresses, which are public, which is the balance, and the key, which is the authorization to spend that balance. Does that make sense? And so when you want to send somebody some Bitcoin, they say, send it to this address, and you enter your key, and that key authorizes the transfer from your address to their address. And you can create addresses from scratch, an infinite number. So nobody issues the address, you create them yourself. So you're just creating an address and a key. And when you send Bitcoin, you're sending it from your address to somebody else's address. Does that make sense? So the address is public, but each address has a matching key. The key is secret, because if you know the key, it's called a private key, then you can spend the full value of that address. Right? So two pieces of information, one public, one secret. On the Bitcoin network, the addresses are public, and they each have a value of how much Bitcoin has been deposited into them. And then there's the key, which only the owner has. And that key authorizes sending the Bitcoin in that address to another public address. So maybe it helps to think of it as checking accounts, and you have but the accounts are public, and the value is public, but then you have a password that authorizes sending from one checking account to another. But of course, we don't know who owns each account. They're all just addresses on the blockchain, unless you advertise, this belongs to me. Yeah, I can get more technical if you want to, yeah. Yeah, it's not easy, right?
Hey there, David. Thank you for your presentation. One of the foundational concerns I have with cryptocurrency, and I'm a proponent of it, is getting anybody to define what it should look like. And I like your list, and I was just wondering where it's from. I've seen Aristotle try to define what it should look like. But most of us here, a lot of us are Christians, so we like to use the Bible. And I saw, we talked last night about anonymity and how there's a pseudo-anonymity in Bitcoin. But I'm just wondering where you got your list from, and do you know, is there a standard out there? And I have a follow-on question, but that's the main one.
You mean what money should be?
What's the ideal money? Like, this is the best money ever.
I can say for me, it's from first principles, right? So this is money. This is just my take on it. It's necessary because of the problem of the double coincidence of wants, meaning that if I raise sheep and you grow corn, then if I want to have some of your corn, I have to give you some sheep, but then you have to want my sheep to give me your corn. So we have to have the double coincidence of wants. And that works in a small community or in a family, but the more people you get involved, the harder it becomes to track how much we owe each other and to coincide that you want what the other person has. And from this idea comes all the properties of money, that you want it to be some common, universal, store of value, a measure of value, and also a store of value. Because if sheep were the store of value, they get old and die, food rots. And so I guess the Austrian school derives this from first principles. Okay. I'm not a historian of this, but I learned it all from the Austrian school, and I would refer you to the Mises Institute to define what money should be.
And then the follow-on question might be too big, but because the backdrop is we want the blessing of God on us, our family, our nation, and all that. So going beyond first principles to things that might not make sense. If I compare gold as the standard, I know a lot of people think gold is the best currency or money. There are people using more and more advanced technologies to create currencies like cryptocurrency. And there might not be an answer to this, but say I'm part of the green movement and I don't want people spending energy generating cryptocurrency, and I can say, well, it takes a fraction of what it takes to get gold out of the ground. How do I bring that to bear on the big narrative that's going on to defend crypto, really?
I can talk a lot about the energy consumption of crypto mining, but as far as gold, commodity money is certainly better than fiat money. It's better than our dollars, which are backed by nothing. So gold is definitely better, and maybe gold is the best money. And ideally, problem is the government made gold money legal. FDR confiscated everybody's gold in 1933. So I would love to have a gold-based money, gold-based savings, and of course, that's what all throughout history people have used until you had the rise of the omnipotent state and big government and welfare and war. The total war. So I'm all for gold. Bitcoin is accepting the reality that governments have made gold money illegal, effectively, through legal tender laws. And but as far as the energy usage, Bitcoin mining is a way to utilize excess energy reserves, because the energy is Well, first of all, it's 0.1% of the world's energy usage is Bitcoin mining. And people have this mistaken impression that if everybody used Bitcoin, it would use more energy, which is not true. You need some energy to secure the Bitcoin network, but you don't need to add more energy when the value goes up or more people use Bitcoin. Right? You just need that minimum to secure the network. So the usage, what it is now, will never need to go up just because the price goes up. But also, Bitcoin mining is entirely powered by renewable energy because energy is expensive, and so the miners move their warehouses full of mining machines to wherever energy is cheapest. And so that's why almost all the mining is in China, and Venezuela, which have artificially low electric prices, and so they're of course taking advantage of that, right? So all the miners go to where you have a hydropower dam, or you have government manipulating the electric prices to be too low. But what ends up happening is that it's mostly powered by renewable energy, where you have unusually cheap prices. So money is a value, right? Money is not everything. It doesn't solve your problems, but it is important for a society to exist, and it's worthwhile to use some resources to secure it. And so there's nothing wrong with the fact that Bitcoin uses energy. Yeah.
Hey, so you mentioned that a lot of the miners that they have, the systems they have mining them, are located in China. Who owns these, like the primary ones? And as a result, where does the cryptocurrency they mine go? Because we know that, like, you know, the Federal Reserve prints out the dollar bills, and thus the dollar bills go to the banks that are owned by the Federal Reserve. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, right, so the Fed prints bills not just physically, and it goes to their buddies. So inflation benefits the people that get the money first, and that's usually banks and government contractors that get new money the government creates first. So with Bitcoin, it's the miners that get it first, and they benefit. And they are, maybe half of them or more, in China. And there's companies such as Bitmain and Bitfury that make the miners, but also they run the mining pools. So oftentimes they sell mining contracts. So even though Chinese companies make the miners, you know, you can buy into their mining contract. But yeah, the money, a lot of it ends up in China because that's where the cost of labor to make the miners is cheaper, and you have the manufacturing to produce them cheapest. And so it's what happens is that Chinese companies are worth a few $1 billion or a few $100 million. But actually the rate of the profit margin on mining is very low because it's so competitive and so risky that the miners do get money, but almost all their revenue is consumed by the cost of electricity and the cost of hardware. So what ends up happening is that, yeah, Chinese companies made a few $100 million to create a $200 billion market. And they're maybe 60, 50% of the whole mining market. Yeah.
When he talked about the purchasing of a car between you and him, it's a private deal between you and another person. It doesn't go through banks. It doesn't go through lending institutions. It doesn't, you know, show the money travels, you know, to that. So it becomes a completely private transaction.
If you want it to be.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's some of the ability. But like you said earlier with that little wallet, little USB hub that you had.
Yeah.
I know that when we go through customs, they want to know how much money you carry with you. And you're not allowed to carry over $10,000 at least without declaration.
Sure.
And there are people who do that on a basis, but then it alerts red flags. It you know, it puts you to scrutiny. It puts you to suspect of money laundering and all these other things. And how does Bitcoin or cryptocurrency kind of help eliminate things, especially, I mean, if you're not doing illegal things.
Sure. So I'm not a lawyer, obviously. I can tell you what the reality is that you can carry as much Bitcoin in here as you want. You can carry $10, $10 million, $10 billion. Nobody can know how much, what the value of the Bitcoin on this wallet is. And so it destroys any attempt to control the transmission of money through customs. That's the reality. You know, I'm sure lawyers and politicians will be arguing about this, and I'm sure they hate that fact. But one of the merits of Bitcoin is it's a global money, and it destroys any ability to have currency controls. And so one of the, you know, I think a large chunk of the Bitcoin's price is the fact that countries such as China and India that have currency controls are using it right now to be able to send their savings overseas because their corrupt governments can take it at any time.
You said they had machines that mine Bitcoin, but you also said there will only ever be 600,000 Bitcoins.
Yeah, sorry, 21 million. Well, so you're asking, yeah, I think I get your question. You're asking if you're mining Bitcoin, what stops you from mining more and more, infinite number of Bitcoin? So the way it works is every 10 minutes you mine a new block of Bitcoin. And the number of Bitcoin mined decreases every, I think it's 16 months. So when Bitcoin was created, every 10 minutes there'd be 50 Bitcoin mined. Right now it's 12.5 Bitcoin. And so the way it works is every 10 minutes somebody on the network wins the lottery. And that means that they solve the math problem and they send it to the whole network. And all the other nodes in the network, they check that problem and check the answer. And they check that the amount is what it should be according to this formula, where every 16 months, then the amount mined goes down. And if somebody mines more than 12.5 Bitcoin, they say, oh, this is not legitimate, you're trying to counterfeit Bitcoin, and they turn it away. So this is not theoretical, this has happened. That there's a mining pool that created a Bitcoin block that had more than 12.5 Bitcoin. I forget the number, but let's say it was 14 Bitcoin. And they said, no, this violates the Bitcoin protocol, we reject it. And so the point is that you're mining Bitcoin every 10 minutes, and then all the other participants confirm that it applies, that it's consistent with the rules. And the rules of the network say that the amount mined keeps going down over the next 100 years until you mine all 21 million Bitcoins. And then there's no more Bitcoin mined.
Over here.
Yeah.
You said that if you were a young person today, that you would suggest to get into some kind of business with Bitcoin.
Or just learn about the blockchain, learn how it works.
Right. So where would you suggest they get that education from? Where would they start? Was there a book? Is there a website? Is there something that they can go, like she was asking, Bitcoin for Dummies?
Bitcoin for Dummies is an actual book that you can read. Yeah, of course, there would be a book. It depends on what you're into. If you're into the blockchain, that's one area. One good book is called Understanding Bitcoin.
My son said he wants to learn how to code.
So if you
Program.
If you want to do blockchain software development, honestly, I don't know the best resource, but there's definitely the online academies, Udemy, etc., that have courses on blockchain development. So I would just find your favorite online learning platform and type for blockchain development, and they have great courses.
So we had Michael Taggart here a couple years ago, who is the owner of BitShares, and he said programmers make $15,000 a week, and there aren't any of them out there. And Janet Amick and I went to a conference in Miami a couple years ago and sat next to a guy on the plane, and I asked her if she had set up her GDAX account yet, and he looked at us and said, "Did you say GDAX?" That's not a word you typically use. And it turned out that he was a business owner from the north who was coming down to Miami to the conference to come find a programmer. And that's how we found out how much they actually earned. But what Michael said was, he said, go to Udemy There's a course there that you can take they're usually $15, but you can get them on sale for 10. You take the basic programming course, and he said there's 4 languages you have to know. One of them's Casper, one of them's Python, one of them's, is it Jing?
Java, probably?
Java, and what would be the 4th one? Do you remember? I don't remember
the
what it
Ethereum
was.
smart contract language. I forget the name. Solidity, that's it.
Solidity. But he said for $50, you can literally learn what programmers need to know how to do that. And I asked him, I said, what do they need to take if they go to college? And he laughed in my face and said, college? They don't teach us in college. Go to Udemy and spend $50 and get your training, and then you're out there in the world doing something that nobody else knows how to do. So is that a good enough answer?
Yes, that's a great
You know
answer.
Michael Taggart?
It's what?
Do you know Michael Taggart? Michael
No,
X?
no.
Okay, he's a good guy to go. Okay, one last question. We're over time.
Actually, I have a comment. For all those people who think gold is the standard, what happens when SpaceX brings an asteroid that's 30% gold bigger than this room? What happens to gold as the standard?
Good point.
And if you think SpaceX isn't thinking about that, you're wrong. 10 years.
Good point.
Yeah, great. Well, let's give David a hand. Isn't this awesome? Good job.
Thanks.